Hi, it's Craig from Scratch at 50, and welcome to the second episode of the Golf Week That Was live podcast. So, excuse me. So, what have we got to talk to about this week? So, we've got the waste management, we've got the Singapore Classic, we've got the Netflix Full Swing series, which you may be thinking, well, actually, that's not happened yet, but you may not be aware that it actually has. Angels and Villains, PGA Tour versus Live Golf Tour. Going to talk a little bit about that. Some Live Golf transfers. Tiger to play the Genesis, probably the biggest news of the week. I want to talk about the PIP Player Impact Program on the PGA Tour. And I've also found some really interesting data on whether you should have the flag stick in or out when you are putting. So I've just got a little bit of housekeeping to do first. So obviously I've started doing this live studio content on my Scratch at 50 channel. And I've noticed over the past week I've been doing it that I've actually been losing some subscribers. So that tells me that people have always enjoyed the golf course related content on Scratch at 50. And that's what they come to Scratch at 50 for. So I've decided to split the two things off. So I've started up a new channel called The Miscut. The link is in the description, so please go and subscribe to The Miscut. As you know, I always appreciate your support. And basically, Scratch at 50 will continue to do all the golf-related content, and The Miscut will do all the live podcasts and studio. So whichever channel you go to, you know what you're going there for, and you know what you're going to get. I think it just makes sense to split the two things away. So that's going to happen. I actually can't do the Golf Week That Was podcast next week. I am away working, so I'm not going to be able to do it. So in 2 weeks' time will be episode 3, and that will actually be broadcast on the Miscut channel. So you want to make sure, please, that you're subscribed to make sure that you get an alert that the podcast is about to start over on the Miscut. And also I might do some impromptu studio podcasts about any sort of breaking golf news over on the Miscut as well. So, yeah, make sure you go and subscribe to the Miscut. As always, just talk about my golf week. Please get into the comments. Let me know what your golf week's been like. The weather, for the first part of the week, the weather's been terrible, really sort of cold. But then actually at the weekend, it actually wasn't too bad. And for once, I actually quite enjoyed being on the golf course. It was just, a little bit warmer. The greenkeepers had gone out and done a bit of work on the course, so it didn't look quite as wintry. I played on Saturday and Sunday. I played okay, pretty happy with the way I played, considering what time of year it is at the moment. I've actually put 3 new clubs in my golf bag. So a few people have been asking for a what's in the bag video, so I'll be doing that soon. And there are 3 new clubs that have gone in for this season, so I'll let you know what they are and why I've put them in the bag ultimately. So yeah, that's my golf week. Not a lot to really speak about, to be honest. I'm away working next week, and by the time we get to the week after that, we're getting to the end of February, then we're getting into March, and then we start to see spring come in, and the weather seems to get a bit better, and then we all start to feel a bit better about everything. So yeah, I'm kind of just looking forward to getting through February and getting to March, and then March will be where I'll really start to step up my practice for the start of the season. First golf tournament with a card in my hand is usually the first weekend in April, so obviously I'll try and get ready for that. Okay, so that's my golf week. Let's get on to the waste management. So it was the first elevated event on the PGA Tour. Well, strictly it wasn't the first because Kapalua was the first one, but that was an invitation only. It was actually only supposed to be people who had won on the PGA Tour last year, but they invited a few extra people to try and bolster the field a bit. But this was the first one that had a real, strong, stellar field, the first real statement by the PGA Tour. The waste management is a really strong event, obviously because of the 16th hole and the amount of fans it gets. I thought the amount of fans on the course was pretty phenomenal, really. Whether they're all golf fans and the kind of fans that you want on the golf course for a tournament is open to debate. I think there's a few players that don't enjoy playing in front of that kind of fan base. Rory McIlroy being one of them. I don't think he enjoys playing at that tournament. I think it's a little bit too wild and a little bit too rowdy for his liking. I'm not saying that's the reason why he played bad, but I just get just my opinion that he doesn't enjoy playing that particular event. Wouldn't be surprised. They're allowed to miss out one elevated event, aren't they? The PGA Tour members. So it would not surprise me if Rory decides to miss the Waste Management next year. So obviously Scotty Scheffler won. He's a bit of a funny one, Scotty Scheffler, isn't he? Because there's no doubt that he is an absolutely phenomenal golfer. You know, his golf game is solid. If you try and think of a real weakness in his game, possibly his driving. He hits the odd miscue with his driver, but everything else is very, very solid. You know, he's deserving to be number one in the world. But if you think about recently with all the talk that's been around the official world golf rankings, you know, John Rahm should be number one. Rory got to number one. Cameron Smith, you know, is up there, but obviously can't earn any points. But people saying that he should be number one. No, I don't remember anyone saying that Scotty Scheffler should be back at number one as a former number one in the world, and all of a sudden he's back at the top of the tree again. So yeah, he's kind of, you know, like I say, he's a fantastic golfer, but he's not very exciting, is he? He's not much of a personality. And while this sort of Live Tour, PGA Tour battle's going on, the PGA Tour want their strongest people, I think, at the top. And although Scotty Scheffler is a lovely guy and a phenomenal golfer, he's not exactly very charismatic. So I'm not quite sure whether the PGA Tour are, you know, they certainly don't want to hang their tour hat on his head. They'll definitely be wanting to put it on Tiger this week, which we're going to talk about, and Rory and John Rahm, you know, those sort of personalities. But fair play to him. I mean, he won the tournament outright. That up and down on 16 was phenomenal. You know, and also the course was playing very, very hard. It was very hard. It was playing hard and fast. The greens were tough. The wind was up. And whenever you get, you know, a tournament like that and a course playing like that, the cream always rises to the top. And it certainly did. I've got it here. You know, Scheffler won. Rahm, Thomas, and Jason Day were all in the top five. Jordan Spieth was up there. I think he finished tied sixth. So, you know, whenever they set golf courses up really tough, you always get the best players coming to the top. But you have to give a special mention to Nick Taylor, who I have never heard of. I don't know him. I'm sure he's been on the tour a long time. I'm sure he's earned his stripes. But to finish second and changed his life, you know, I think he picked up over $2 million because obviously in these elevator events they've you know, raised the prize money massively. So for him to finish second in the company of Scheffler, Rahm, Thomas, Day, Spieth, and hold his own and finish clear in second place, I think is an absolutely phenomenal achievement. Like I say, get into the comments. Actually, Graham's put on the comment what I've actually got written down here already. I've got it written down. Ricky Fowler is definitely trending. He is definitely trending. Tied 10th. I would seriously consider right now putting an outside bet on Ricky Fowler for the Masters. You'll get amazing odds on him at the moment, and his game has been trending in the right direction for a long time. And if it keeps trending in the right direction, then I can see him being near the top of the leaderboard. So I don't know whether you want to put a bet on him to win or bet on him to get in the top five, but I certainly think it's worth a shout. Because, you know, his game is getting stronger and stronger and his confidence is coming back as well. So, and confidence in this game is obviously very important. I've also got written down here, Jordan Spieth's putting. Jordan Spieth was without doubt the best putter in the world by an absolute country mile, you know, forever. But just recently, his putting started to look a little bit suspect, you know, and I think he's lost a bit of confidence in his putter. But, you know, even with not putting his best, he came tied sixth at the Waste Management. So we know what his record's like at the Masters. I would fully expect Jordan Spieth to be right up there again. I mean, we're still a little bit away from the Masters, aren't we? We're sort of like about 8 weeks away, something like that. So, but I do think that Spieth's putting, which was definitely the strongest part of his game, I would say that it's not the strongest part of his game at the moment. And another notable performance, because I always like to pick someone out for the European Ryder Cup team, with me being a Brit. There was another really strong performance by Seamus Power. He came tied 20th. I think there's a very good chance that he's going to make his first appearance for the European Ryder Cup team. And very interesting that Luke Donald made sure that he played in the Hero Cup a couple of weeks ago, where they had the Great Britain and Ireland against continental Europe, and obviously there was a lot of potential Ryder Cuppers that were invited to that, and he was one of them. So I think if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's already won on the tour this year, or was it late last year? Can't remember, but he's definitely going to be a strong bet for the Ryder Cup, I would say. We're now going to go on to the well, yeah. While we're on the waste management, we need to talk about the 16th hole. I think it's a phenomenal achievement for them to set all those grandstands up. I mean, I've got a picture of it here. Just bear with me. I mean, to set that up and build that, it is absolutely phenomenal. And there's nothing else like it in golf for sure. It would not surprise me if Live Golf tried to recreate something like this. With the money they've got, they could quite easily put those sort of grandstands together. We know that it would seem that money is no object on the Live Tour, but it was definitely calmed down a little bit this year. I felt, last year there was loads of people chucking beer cans on the hole, and it was extremely rowdy. I think this year it was, I think it was policed just a little bit more than it has been in the past. They're obviously always hoping that they're going to get a hole in one. They got one last year. They didn't get one this year. They got a couple that were really close. Tony Finau got really close, and there was a guy on the last day who got really close as well, whose name just escapes me at the moment. So I think for my personal opinion is it's great as a one-off. I wouldn't want to see that sort of thing at every tournament. There's another question as to whether it attracts the right sort of fan. Are they golf fans? Is that a bad thing if you're attracting different people to the sport? I personally think that that's not a bad thing, as long as it's sort of controlled and it doesn't get too out of hand. I think last year when beer cans were landing on the green, they were putting dints in the green, and that wasn't very cool at all, really. It all got a little bit out of hand. But still a phenomenal tournament. We're going to talk a little bit more about the waste management and what a sort of feather in the PGA Tour's cap that it is a bit later on. Onto the Singapore Classic on the DP World Tour. I've got written down here, beautiful golf course with a brutal finish, but hard to get excited with such a poor field and absolutely no spectators. It's really struggling, the DP World Tour at the moment. I personally think, now, you may not agree with this, and it would not surprise me if, in the comments, people comment on what I'm about to say. But I think that Keith Pelley, the CEO of the DP World Tour, he is saying all the right things. There's this court case going on at the moment in London, which is going to determine whether the Live Tour players are going to be allowed to play in the DP World Tour events. And I think that Keith Pelley is saying all the right things, as in, no, they shouldn't play. There's the rules on the tour. But I think that when he goes to bed at night, he is praying that the DP World Tour loses that court case and the Live Tour players are allowed to play in the DP World Tour events. Because he can say, well, we did everything to stop it, but that's the court ruling and we can't do anything about it now, so we just get on with it. And the strength of field and the dynamic within those DP World Tour events is going to change completely. The DP World Tour has been in decline and bleeding its best players for over a decade. If the Live Tour players, in my opinion, are allowed in this court ruling to play in the DP World Tour events, it's going to rejuvenate the DP World Tour, because these players they're never going to be able to go and play in the PGA Tour, certainly not for a long time. They're going to, at the moment, they're going to be looking to play in events where they can pick up world ranking points. So these DP World Tour events that are really struggling. I mean, the guy, I feel a bit sorry because I've not spoken about the guy who won it. Ockie Stridham from South Africa. Again, I have to hold my hands up. I have not heard of him. I don't know anything about him whatsoever. I did watch the last round, And I don't know whether you saw his up and down on the last to win, but it was absolutely ridiculous. He had a sharp bank in front of him. The on-course commentator was saying he's got no option but to play like a parachute shot. His lie was pretty good, but he obviously didn't fancy it. And he's played a chip and run into the bank with the grain against him. You've got to remember, in parts of the world like Singapore, the grain is so strong that a chip and run shot usually doesn't work. And as soon as he brought out that straight-faced club, the commentator was saying, oh, this is the wrong shot. This could come back to his feet in a heartbeat. And he played it. It took 2 bounces up the bank, just crept over the top, just ran down to about 5 inches from the hole. I mean, there was no way he could miss, and that was it. He'd won. It was a phenomenal shot. Whether, how much skill and how much luck was involved in it, I'm not sure. But Occy Stridham, full marks to you there. That was an incredible up and down to win. But, as an event, it was kind of just, there was nothing to really get too excited about. And I do think that, if the live players are allowed to play in these DP World Tour events, and, some of them start to rock up. I mean, if that event had a Patrick Reed, I know Patrick Reed's not very popular, but, if he is a great player, if it had a Patrick Reed, if Dustin Johnson turned up, if, Poulter, Westwood, Louis Oosthuizen, these are great Cam Smith, these are great golfers. If they decided to turn up, even if it was just for 1 week, it would do wonders for these DP World Tour events. I tell you what, the sponsors won't be complaining. The sponsors won't be complaining. The sponsors will be made up because the amount of attention that will be turned on those events will be far bigger than what they're currently getting. So, yeah, I don't know when this result is going to be announced. I'm guessing it's not going to take too long. So we're going to find out what it is. But I personally think it will be for the good of the DP World Tour if the live golfers are allowed to play in it. Get into the comments, let me know what you think. So Mark Wilkinson's in the comments talking about the waste management. Agree, I think the WM works as a one-off, but not every week. I'm with you on that completely, Mark. Honestly, I think it is a novelty. It's fantastic for 1 week, but I certainly wouldn't want to see it every single week. Graham Anderson thought the Singapore course looked great, and it was good to see Andy Sullivan, in the mix. Yeah, he did play well. He was in the last group, wasn't he? Did you see his reaction to Stridham's up and down when he chip and run it up that bank? I mean, he couldn't believe it. I think he knew it was the wrong shot. And you're right, the final 3 holes on that Singapore Classic were absolutely brutal. Water on all of them. The 17th was a par 3 with pretty much an island green, and the wind was blowing a bit, and it was a tough. It was a long hole as well, so there was a potential disaster on all 3 holes. The 18th was actually a par 5. It was a real risk and reward hole, but it had water all the way down the left-hand side. So a great design for tournament golf because, until the final putt was in the hole, anything could happen. You could get an eagle on the last, or you could quite easily catch the water and take a double bogey. I always think those kind of courses that are designed like that are always great. It's like Sawgrass, isn't it, for the Players' Championship? Those last 3 holes are full of opportunity, but also got disaster just waiting around the corner as well. So, the swings and roundabouts that can happen can be really big. And, at that Singapore Classic, it was definitely the same. The only other notable I've got here is there was a South Korean called Yuang Hun Wang. Never heard of the guy. He played really well. He finished tied 3rd. And what I just think is interesting about that is, South Korean golf on the women's tour has been phenomenally strong for so long. I mean, they've literally been ruling women's professional golf for a long time. But we've just not seen not many South Korean men come through in the same amount. I know there's, there are some on the PGA Tour that are obviously, big players now. There's 3 or 4 of them, isn't there, that are very big. But just not the quantity of players that you've seen on the women's side. So to see a young lad come through and get a tied 3rd finish there, I think is definitely worth noting and definitely worth mentioning as well. So what have we got here? Mark Wilkinson, course design is massive in making a spectacle, in my opinion. Yeah, it is. It's why Augusta National is, such a great venue, isn't it? you've got obviously you've got Amen Corner where again you've got disasters waiting there at any moment whatsoever. But then you've got 15 as a potential eagle, 16 if they put that pin in the back left position. There's always a chance of a hole in one. I mean, the whole tournament could turn, and it definitely, it definitely adds to the spectacle. And I think this will be something actually to mention in a podcast further down the line when we have an actual podcast about live golf when the live golf season's about to start. I really like the fact that a shotgun start gets everyone on the course at the same time, playing in the same conditions. I think it's that from that point of view, I think it's fairer. I like the fact that all the players that I want to watch are all on the course at the same time, and I can watch them, and we're all done and dusted in 4 hours. I think that is all fantastic with a shotgun start, in my opinion. Where the shotgun start doesn't work is that, like Mark says, course design is massive in making a spectacle. It's only massive in making a spectacle if everyone's coming down those as their last holes. Whereas in a shotgun start, there's going to be people who are going to be finished on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th and 6th. And for me, live, they already do it, don't they? So the last 6 players go off the 1st. So the last 2 groups always finish on the 18th. I think they should make it the last 3 groups, just to make sure that the people who are fighting it out for the title are always going to finish on, the 16th, 17th, and 18th holes. I can only remember one really where I think it was in Boston when Lee Westwood was in with a chance of winning, and he was finishing like on the 2nd, and all the leaders, Cam Smith, Dustin Johnson, who won it, Jochen Neiman, they were going down the 18th. And it made it a bit of a difficult thing to follow, really, because, Westwood was on a completely different part of the course, playing a different hole. You weren't really sure how hard that hole was, whether it was a real birdie opportunity for him, which it actually was, and he actually fatted a sand wedge into the front bunker, if I remember rightly. So I think that's where the shotgun start doesn't work. But courses that are built specifically for tournament play usually always have a really exciting finishing stretch of holes, don't they? So that's it for the Singapore Classic. Just before we go away from that, Mark saying by having the last groups in live playing the course the right way, 1 to 18, they are admitting that the shotgun start doesn't work well. Yeah, never thought of it like that, Mark. I suppose you could say that. I think that there's always going to be pluses and minuses against a shotgun start, and I've outlined some of them there for a start. So it's weighing up those two things, isn't it? I personally these days I am not going to sit there. Maybe for the Masters and maybe for the Open, I will sit there and watch the entire sort of last day of a tournament. But for the waste management and for other normal events, I'm not going to sit there for 8 hours on a Thursday and Friday and wait for Rory to come back out in the afternoon because I was watching John Rahm in the morning. It's too long. So I do think that the shotgun start in that respect works really well because if that was the situation in that situation there, Rory and John Rahm would be on the course at the same time. But then there's the minus of what we just discussed there, where everyone's finishing and starting on the course doesn't work quite as well. I don't think it really matters on the Friday and Saturday. I really don't. But on the Sunday, it definitely has a big bearing on it because people are coming down the stretch trying to win a tournament. So next onto Netflix Full Swing. So this is the Netflix documentary where they have been following. It's the same people who did the Drive to Survive for F1, and that show has absolutely took F1, which is already as a sport, one of the most well watched sports in the world. But one of the countries where it wasn't particularly well watched was in the USA. And now it's huge in the USA, and it's basically because of this Drive to Survive series. So the same people have done the Full Swing. They've followed the PGA Tour for a year and put this documentary series together. I mean, man, they couldn't have picked a better year. I think Ian Poulter says it on the trailer you couldn't have picked a better year to follow the PGA Tour. So it actually goes the whole series. I think it's the whole series. It might be the first 2 episodes, but it's certainly going live on Netflix tomorrow, the 15th. But I don't know whether everyone knows, but they actually released the first episode on their Netflix YouTube channel, of which I watched. It was called Frenemies, and it follows Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. Frenemies, obviously, because they're best friends, but also enemies on the golf course. And maybe my expectations were a little bit too high of it. I'm not sure. It was good. It was extremely well put together. As you'd expect. As a production, it was very, very good. And you saw a little bit of behind the scenes with Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth, but I didn't really learn anything that I didn't already know. It kind of focused on Justin Thomas winning the PGA Championship, and him wanting to win more majors than Jordan Spieth, which at the moment obviously he's trailing a little bit. There was some nice stuff on there. It showed stuff from when they were playing against each other when they were juniors, when they were 7, 8 years old. These 2 lads have known each other pretty much all of their lives, and they've played golf against each other through every single rank, through junior golf, high school, college, and now in professional golf. And they are quite obviously best friends. They get on well. It was interesting to see a little bit behind the scenes stuff, but I don't think I learned anything particularly, interesting or more than what I thought I already knew. But they then did show you, at the end, it shows you like a coming up. And then obviously they're going to be covering the whole when the live golf thing started and players started to move across. And wow, I can't wait to watch that. That's going to be really interesting to see, what was actually happening behind the scenes. And DJs took part in it. Brooks Koepka's played it. And when they signed up for it, they were signing up for, obviously playing the PGA Tour. And then, Netflix have absolutely fallen on their feet because these players defected over to the Live Tour and we had cameras following them while this was happening. So that's going to be super interesting. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, you can go on to the Netflix YouTube channel, obviously after this podcast, and you can watch the first episode on YouTube. Well, it's definitely worth a watch for sure, but I can't wait to get to the following episodes. So the next thing to talk about is I've called it Angels and Villains, and it's the way that sort of the PGA Tour is portraying itself and the way that Live Golf is portraying itself. And it is kind of like, the angels on the PGA Tour and all the villains are on the Live Tour. And I suppose when you've signed up people like Patrick Reed, Brooks Koepka, Sergio's, become very unpopular, hasn't he, recently? Phil Mickelson obviously has, because of everything that's gone on with him. Pat Perez, these are guys that are real characters, but they are seen as sort of the bad boys of professional golf, and they all seem to be on the Live Tour. Obviously, not all of them on the Live Tour are villains. Dustin Johnson, don't think anyone would ever say that Dustin Johnson and Cam Smith are villains. They're not. They're super nice down the line, great golfers and great people. But for sure, Live Golf have got a few more of those edgier characters on their tour, and they play on it. They definitely play on it. Whereas the PGA Tour, with this really super clean-cut image, they play on it on that way as well. And I'm not sure, as far as promoting your tour, which one works the best. So I've got here, the PGA Tour. So, you've got people like Rory, Justin, Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler. I mean, these are all just super clean-cut, squeaky clean angels on the PGA Tour. And I do think that the PGA Tour, it's definitely upped its game. And I don't mean in the elevated events. I don't mean in finding this extra money. I mean in starting to promote itself as a product a bit better. But I still think it's got a long way to go. A hell of a long way to go. So I've got an example here of what I'm trying to sort of get at. And I've got so we're going to just switch back to the waste management here. So I think we'd all say that 16th hole is an absolute jewel in its marketing crown. So whenever I work in my job, I work with cycle brands. So, when we're putting the marketing assets together for the year, you go and find all your best stuff and you say, right, okay, that's all the best stuff we've got, and we're going to build our brand around that. So if the PGA Tour was going to do that, you've got Rory, you've got Tiger, you've got John Rahm, you've got those players. But, the 16th at Waste Management would definitely be one of those assets where you can really go to town on that and use that as something to make your product stand out and look amazing. And I just don't think that they're doing it. I went trawling through their Instagram, and I found one where they opened up the rope and people started running to get to the grandstand. So that was quite cool. That was a bit different. But as far as everything else, all they were doing was just playing golfers hit golf shots on that hole, which is something that they've just done forever and a day. I just feel like they're not moving with the times. They're still doing it the same way as they did it before, and they still think that that's good enough. So I've got a little video here. Now, this is what I found. This was the only video I could find online, and it is called, I've got it written here, the video is called Electric Moments of the Waste Management 16th Hole. So I thought, wow, this should be good. This is going to be great. Now, I'm going to mute it, and I'm just going to play it for a little bit because the PGA Tour are very good at noticing people using their content. I don't want this stream to get shut down. So I'll probably only play it for about 10 or 15 seconds. But trust me, what you're about to see is all it does for about 8 minutes. So here we go. I'm gonna play it now.
He wants some noise.
So there you go. That is pretty much it. They just keep showing golfers. Obviously, they're star golfers. So we started off with John Rahm, then you went to Justin Thomas. But just hitting golf shots onto the green. You've got an amazing opportunity there with all these fans to put cameras in with the grandstands with the fans, get some fan interaction going. Have the cameras walking through the tunnel with the players, so as they come out and the crowd cheers, and there's so much opportunity there to do some really amazing stuff to really promote the PGA Tour in a new way. And, they're just not doing it. They've got the strongest assets in world professional golf. And I just don't think they are anywhere near maxing them out at all. I mean, please, again, get in the comments. Let me know whether you agree with what I'm saying here. Whereas Live Golf, I think, is the opposite. They haven't got anywhere near the assets that the PGA Tour has got. Their tour is brand new, so they've got no history. They've got no iconic events. They've got a lot of very good players. They've got a strong. I think they've got a strong product. They've got some real characters, like we discussed before. Some people would say that they are the villains, but they are interesting. People gravitate towards them because they are characters and they are a bit different. Whether we like it or not, Scotty Scheffler is a little bit beige. He is a little bit boring. You would never say that about Patrick Reed or Pat Perez or, any of these guys. So, Live Golf has got nowhere near the assets that the PGA Tour has got. But they, for me, are absolutely maxing out what little they have got. They are maxing it out big time. So they released a trailer for their 2023 Live Golf season. And I'm going to play that now. And I'm hoping that this will, I don't know whether you've seen it or not. I don't know whether this will highlight what I'm talking about, because I think that this is where they're very good. This is where they're making what little they've got at the moment look like a whole lot more than what they've actually got. This is about 1.5 minutes long. I'm going to let it play all the way through because I don't think Live Golf are too bothered about people sharing their content. I think they actually encourage it. So yeah, have a look at this if you haven't seen it. I think you'll see what I'm saying about them maxing out their product and what they've got to make it look like a hell of a lot more than what they actually do have.
You cannot blink in live golf. If you're new to all of this, where have you been? Action all over the golf course. What a matchup this should be today. Extraordinary. Oh, yeah, baby. Just listen to the roar of that crowd.
It's got
Cam Smith etched into live golf lore. A biblical effort. It's a four-peat for the four aces.
what a win.
Let me see those hands up.
Relief, ecstasy, joy, all those emotions. Does he like it? He loves it. Makes it.
Into the hole.
Chakara, the young maestro from Madrid. Brooks Koepka has arrived on the Live Golf Tour. Solid as a rock. Dustin Johnson. Up it goes! The all-conquering four aces.
It's golf, but louder.
You see what I'm getting at? For me, there's no reason why the PGA Tour, with that 16th hole, couldn't have put something together along those lines to really market their brand and really market their product. And they're just not, for me, they're just not doing it at all. And it's one area where they're allowing Live quite an easy ride to appear to be the noisy neighbour, the cooler cousin, the edgier, more interesting product. Because, if you watch those two videos, let me put it this way to you. If you knew nothing about the PGA Tour and you knew nothing about the Live Tour, but you were a keen golfer, so you've got no preconceived idea of both of them, and I played you those two videos and said, right, you can go and watch one of those two things, which one would you go and watch? I would pick the Live Golf for sure. But actually, the better thing to go to is the 16th at the Waste Management. So really, that video, should have been far, far better and far, far more engaging than what they're managing to do. And I think the PGA Tour have really got to up their game on their marketing and on their product. Because that's one thing that Live Golf are very, very good at. Whoever's creating that content for them is doing a very, very, very good job indeed. And while we're on the subject of Live, they haven't announced any transfers yet. I think that there was going to be an announcement this week, but I think once Tiger announced that he was coming back for the Genesis, which we're going to get onto next, they've delayed it because, you're not going to get any traction in the news while Tiger Woods is making a comeback. So I think you won't hear anything from Live Golf till the Genesis is finished, and then you'll probably see a little bit of a flurry of activity, media releases from them. But Sebastian Munoz and Mito Pereira apparently told a local media outlet in South America that they are joining Joaquin Niemann on Talk GC. It's the worst kept secret, although it's not been officially announced. I think, it's quite obvious. It's been rumoured for a long time. So those two guys are going to be going across to Live Golf. Is that a massive loss? Is that making Live Golf stronger? Yes, for sure. It means that, two players come in and two weaker players are going to go out. Are the PGA Tour particularly bothered that they've lost those two players? Probably not. They would have been far more worried about the rumours that Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele were thinking of going, which it looks like they're not going to now. So I think I think both parties are happy. Live Golf has strengthened their squad. and the PGA Tour hasn't lost any of what they consider to be their real sort of like talisman stars. But like I say, I think once the Genesis is out of the way and the Tiger Woods circus sort of calms down a little bit, you'll probably see those get officially announced by Live Golf. Which takes us on to Tiger to play at the Genesis. So this was, this is where Tiger Woods can just break the internet with one tweet. I'm ready to play an actual PGA Tour event next week at the Genesis Invitational. And, the golfing world absolutely blew up. I mean, I took that screen grab actually on Friday, I think, and it already had 5.5 million views. So whatever your views are on Tiger Woods, there's no doubt that he's still the loudest voice in professional golf for sure. And the PGA Tour would have been absolutely delighted that he was going to come back. The only question I've got, and again, let me know what you think in the comments, is he coming back because he's the host of the tournament, or is he coming back because he genuinely thinks that he can win? Tiger has always said that he never tees it up unless he thinks he can win. And I genuinely think no matter what condition his body's been in the past, whether it was with his back or now with his foot, I think he genuinely believes that he can win. He's so mentally strong. It's absolutely outrageous. But I just wonder, because it is his tournament and he's the host, and obviously he's got sponsors that, have been loyal to him for a long time, whether he is actually just turning up out of loyalty to his sponsors to make sure that the event gets a massive amount of publicity, or whether he is actually genuinely ready to come back and play and compete on the PGA Tour. I guess we're not going to know till, well, probably his practice round. We'll see what his limp's like in the practice round, see whether actually, it's been 7 months since he played the Open Championship. You can do a lot of rehab in 7 months. So maybe he's got himself built up that leg, that right leg, I think it is, isn't it? Maybe he's built that right leg up a bit, to be a bit stronger and, going to be able to allow him to. I've got no doubt that Tiger Woods can hit the ball and score low golf rounds. It's just whether he can actually walk around 4 rounds of golf or not. Let's got a few comments that have come in. Mark, the PGA Tour can't just copy the Live style. Live is certainly going to make the PGA Tour look like their marketing, but I just don't think doing what Live does is not the answer for the PGA Tour. No, I'm not. I'm not saying they should copy what Live does. I'm just saying they've got to do a better job. You know what I mean? Just basically using a static camera and showing golfers hitting shots onto a green. It's not good enough, in my opinion. You've got to step your game up now. You've got a genuine challenge to your position. At the moment, it's a far off challenge. But if you don't really start to get your act together, that challenge is going to get stronger and stronger. And, they've got to do it better. They've got to do it. There's so many amazing things they could have done on that hole from a creating content point of view, which they've just not used. They've just not maxed out on. Maybe they'll bring out a video in the next week or so, and I'll come on here and say, okay, fair dues. They've done it, and that was amazing. It looked great, and how cool was that? But I trolled that hole has been there for a long time, and I trolled looking for any kind of really engaging, exciting content, and I couldn't find any. That was the best I could find. So I'm not saying they should copy Live Golf, but I think they've just got to do it better. They've got to up the game. They can't just keep doing it the old way. You've got to move with the times a little bit. It's my opinion. Let me know what you think. Mark, challenge is getting stronger from Live. You're right about that. Yeah. It's still nowhere near really damaging the PGA Tour. But if it keeps growing, one thing I will say about Live, and I'm curious about Live. I'm willing to give it a chance. I did watch all the events. There are a lot of things about it that I really like. There are some things about it that I don't like. The biggest thing I don't like is that the fact that there's not a real qualifying system. I think I said on the last podcast, if they made it that the top 10 on the Asian Tour got promoted onto the Live Tour and the bottom 10 on the Live Tour money list dropped off each year, I would be more than willing to put up with a shotgun start on Sunday and not everyone finishing on the 18th hole. It's that kind of still invitation only thing that just doesn't quite sit right with me. But I think as a product, it's good. It's good. Their production on their TV broadcasts, you've got to give them some credit. They're only 6 months old competition-wise as a tour, and only 8 events old. To attract the players that they did and put a product together as quickly as they did was pretty bloody impressive. It's got to be said. And I think it surprised the PGA Tour. I think it caught them on the hop. I don't think they thought that they were going to come strong so quickly. And by the time they realised, it was too late. That was the problem. But the PGA Tour still holds all the cards. But if they don't start doing things better, Liv is going to keep coming. It's going to keep coming. And, they've got to really get their act together. Mark, again, so much they could have done with Tiger's return. Yeah, I mean, if they had a fit Tiger Woods, and what I mean is by a fit Tiger Woods is the Tiger Woods before his car accident. So, he'd fused his back together. Yeah, 100%. If they had that Tiger Woods still, then it would be such a massive plus for the PGA Tour. Unfortunately, he's just going to dip in and out of tournaments. And for me, I think he's going to play 4 majors and maybe another 2 PGA Tour events. He'll probably play the Genesis and the Hero, which are the 2 events that he's the host at. So you're only going to have Tiger for 6 events and 2 of your actual PGA Tour events, because remember, the majors aren't PGA Tour events. So it has put a massive burden on Rory, hasn't it? And I think he's felt that burden quite strongly at times, but also I think it's actually really strengthened his resolve and made him, really step up and play some of his best stuff. I think in some respects it's been a good thing for Rory. But, other people have got to come and share a bit of that burden, I think, with Rory. He can't be the only voice, the only spokesperson, to go up against Liv for, certainly for this season and probably the season after. So, yeah, Tiger, what do you think? Do you think he's going to make the cut? Get in the comments, yes or no, cut. Is he going to make the cut? I don't think he's going to make the cut. I don't think his health is quite there yet to walk 2 rounds of golf and play well enough. And obviously as well, when you've not played in much competition, if it was anyone else but Tiger Woods, I would be saying absolutely no chance whatsoever they are missing the cut. Because it's Tiger Woods, you do think he could do it. You know what I mean? He could do it. But I just think it's going to be a massive ask for him. He did say in his press conference today that he's still suffering with that condition. What was it? Placifiliitis or something that he's been suffering from, and he's still got it. He's still suffering from it, although it's getting better. So he's obviously not really healthy. So I'm not sure whether. No, I don't think he's going to make the cut. And if I'm wrong, I will quite gladly come here and say that I was wrong. Graham, would a tournament between the PGA and Liv be a good idea in the future, Ryder Cup style format? Yeah, we discussed that on the last podcast, Graham, and Greg Norman came out and said that he wants it to happen. And it's quite a clever move by Greg Norman. It was kind of Greg being Greg again and stirring the cauldron. Because it's a no-lose situation and it's a no-win for Liv, and it's a no-win situation for the PGA Tour, because if the PGA Tour won, everyone would just say, well, of course they won. They should win. They've got the best players in the world. They're the stronger. They've got the most depth. They're the biggest tour. So they should win. Whereas Liv would, be able to say the opposite and just say, but, if Liv won, wow, that it would be a massive feather in their cap. And it wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility. If you think about what team Liv could put together, a 12-man team, Dustin Johnson, let's just say that they were all playing well. They were all in good form, which not all of them are. But let's just say you had Dustin Johnson, Cam Smith, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, Louis Oosthuizen, Ian Poulter. You know what he's like when he gets in a match play situation. they could put a very strong 12-man team together, but I just don't see in any shape or form that it's a good situation for the PGA Tour, and for that reason, I don't think it's going to happen. If it did happen, Greg Norman said it would be the Super Bowl of golf, and it would. It would be the Super Bowl of golf. I think it would be bigger than the Ryder Cup, and that is bloody saying something. But I just think, the depth of feeling and everything that's gone on, if that took place this year, it would be huge. It'd be one of the biggest events of the year in sport, for sure. So, from Tiger playing in the Genesis, I wanted to just move on to, this is kind of just segueing into the Player Impact Program on the PGA Tour. Now, for those who don't know what the PIP program is, basically the players on the PGA Tour who are thought of, or I think there might actually be a point system somehow of actually ranking this, but they're the ones who've been most influential with their personal social media, and then they get a payout from the PGA Tour. Now, for me, the PIP program is basically a brown envelope in disguise for their top players to keep them sweet. That's what I think it is. I think it's their way of giving money to Rory, to Tiger, to Jon Rahm. Those guys who they just don't want to lose, they can't afford to lose. Keep them on board. Hideki Matsuyama is another one. For the Japanese market, it is so important that LIV don't get Hideki Matsuyama. It would be huge for the LIV Golf if they got Hideki. He is over in the Far East. He is the man. He is the god. So he always gets paid out on the Player Impact Program, and I just think that's all it is. It's a legal way for the PGA Tour to give tens of millions of dollars, or a lot of millions of dollars, to their star players. And that was kind of backed up because actually within the Player Impact Program, there is a criteria that says, I've got it written down here, you've got to play 15 events. You've got to play 15 PGA Tour events to qualify for the PGA Tour Player Impact Program. Tiger Woods is not going to play 15 events, as we've just discussed. But he will. He won the PIP with that one tweet that he put out that he was going to play in the Genesis. That was it. Job done. Won. Number one in the PIP Player Impact Program. And he will get paid out. You mark my words. He will get paid out as number one in the Player Impact Program, and they will give him $30 million or however many it is. And he will not play 15 events. And Jay Monahan actually came out, I think it was a week ago or maybe just over a week ago, and said that he has the discretion to award in the Player Impact Program. So basically, he was giving himself a get-out-of-jail-free card that he'll be able to box Tiger off with a load of money to keep him absolutely on board and him not having to play the 15 events. And I've just got a bit of a problem with it, to be honest. I think it's absolute load of rubbish. And I think it's just not even worth really taking any note of whatsoever. Let me know what you think. Do you take any notice of the PIP program? I don't think any of us do we? I think there's only the players that keep tabs on it to see where they're going to finish and how much money they're going to get given. So, yeah, not a fan of the PIP program whatsoever. Let me know what you think in the comments. So finally, I found this, which I thought you would find very interesting. And I'm actually going to do a video for the Scratch at 50 channel on this as well. So I read this paper by a guy called Tom Mays. He is the Professor of Mechanical Engineering and former Associate Chair of the Department of Mechanical Engineering at California Polytechnic State University. It's quite a mouthful there. Now, this guy is no amateur. I'm just reading what it says here. It's not me making this up. Is no amateur golf scientist. He's been on the vanguard of golf equipment research for much of his 30-plus years, as well as stints at both Callaway and Titleist. And this guy, who's obviously, got PhDs coming out of his ears, decided to do a full paper on whether you should have the flagstick in or out when you're putting. And he has come up with all the answers. And it's a really interesting read. So the first one is on long putts of over 30 feet. He says that there is a small benefit to leaving the flag in because it gives you more depth perception to judge the distance with your eyes. And also, if you do hit the ball too hard for the ball to go in, either hitting the flag or hitting the hole without the flag can obviously stop the ball from going as far past. But he claims that it won't actually give the ball more chance of going in the hole. He tested it with 4 different flag sticks made out of 4 different materials with 4 different thicknesses. I mean, this guy's really, really gone into it. And he found that 72% of the time a ball hits the flag stick off center, aka a glancing blow. In total, the mate percentage with the flag stick out was 90%. That was in all instances. That 90% of the time, without the flag stick, the ball went in. The average with a flag stick in was 45%, so that's half the amount. As high as 61% with a fiberglass pin, and as low as 36% with a dual diameter pin. In general, a putt that strikes the flagstick off centre is twice as likely to go in with the flagstick out as it is with the flagstick in. So there you go. Conclusive proof that you should always take the flagstick out, apart from on really long putts where actually it might help you judge the distance and it might stop the ball from going way past the hole. I just thought that was a really interesting, proper bit of science. This is not someone sort of just giving an opinion. He's done a hell of a lot of research into this, and it is overwhelmingly come out that actually 90% of the time you are better having the pin out than in. I personally always take it out. On long putts, I will leave it in. I tell you what you want to do is ask someone to tend the flag for you and watch their face. They've forgotten what it's like. They've forgotten what it's like to tend the pin. And anyone who's a newbie to golf, they don't know what you're saying. They're like, you what, mate? You what? Tend? What's that about? Got no idea. So it's been a lost art in golf now, tending the flag. But yeah, for sure, from that research, you should definitely have the flag out. Mark, pin out for me. Hole just feels smaller, but more than happy for the newish ruling. Yeah, I mean, the ruling was brought in to quicken up play. That was basically it. So, you weren't having to wait for someone to go and tend it or take the flag out for you. If you got on the green and your playing partner's rolling his blinking electric trolley round the green, instead of having to wait for him to come on and tend the flag for you, you could just get on with it and just hit your putt with the flag in. That was the reason the rule was brought in. It wasn't brought in to make it any easier for the ball to go in the hole. But yeah, Tom Mays is, he's got all the answers, and basically we should always take the flagstick out. So on that note, we are finished for this week. Thanks for everyone who's took part in the live comments. I really appreciate it. This video will go onto the channel as a recorded podcast, so you can get into the comments there as well, and I will answer the comments. Please remember that next week I'm away, so I won't be able to do it a week today. So the next episode of the Golf Week That Was podcast is going to be in 2 weeks, and it's going to be on the Missed Cut channel. So please make sure that you subscribe to the Missed Cut. The link is in the description on when I post the video, and then you can make sure that you don't miss any future episodes. Okay, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure, and enjoy your week of golf. Hopefully you're going to get to play a bit this week. If you do, I hope the sun shines. I hope the ball flies straight down the middle, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time in the studio. But I have got lots of content in the meantime being posted on Scratch at 50. Okay, cheers, and I'll see you